Hello, welcome. You're watching Primetime. My name is Ayush Alavadi. Let's have a look at today's headlines. Minister of State for Civil Aviation Jayant Sinha says Air India will be split into 4 separate entities. Adds that the sale process will be completed by the end of 2018. That's a Bloomberg exclusive. UID introduces face recognition for Aadhaar authentication in its bid to allay security concerns. The third layer of security will be used in tandem with existing authentication methods. Rajiv Lal and V. Vaidyanathan say retail business will be the top priority for the IDFC Bank Capital First combined. And Union Bank of India is looking to sell its exposure to SR Steel and Bhushan Steel, seeks bidders for loans worth 2,700 crore rupees. Indian markets set new records for the third straight day. The Nifty closes just shy of 10,750. Banking and cement shares lead the rally. Well, let's start off with the biggest news story of the day. Air India should become a private airline by the end of 2018, says Minister of State for Civil Aviation Jayant Sinha. Speaking to Bloomberg News' Unni Krishnan, Sinha says the national carrier will be split into 4 separate divisions before it's put up for sale. Here's an excerpt of that conversation.
The strategic disinvestment process is moving forward expeditiously. We have appointed a transaction advisor, an asset valuation advisor, as well as a legal advisor. And our expectation is that by the end of this month, the first week of February, we'll have an expression of interest document, a confidential information memorandum and a data room available, which will provide all the details about the transaction, the airline as well as its various subsidiaries. And that will then give an opportunity for all those that are interested in bidding for Air India to go through, examine all the details, and then over a period of time be able to put in a bid as well.
So, I mean, in terms of timelines, what are we looking at? January end is the expression of interest. Subsequently, how long will it take for a new bidder to actually acquire the airline and start operations?
So the end of January will be actually when the confidential information memorandum as well as the data room will become available. Thereafter, we will provide bidders with about 60 days to actually put up their expression of interest. Then they will be shortlisted, and then after the shortlisting process, then they will go in and put up a formal bid. So we expect this whole process of people putting in their bids and then those bids being evaluated to last between 6 to 8 months. Thereafter, once we have selected a winning bidder, we expect the legal closing process to take another few months thereafter. And our expectation is by the end of 2018, we'll have transferred Air India and its subsidiaries to the winning bidders in a sort of legal and final way.
Yeah. And in terms of the process itself, are we looking at selling it lock, stock and barrel, or are we looking at, sort of separating the subsidiary companies and also possibly some of the assets from the existing Air India as we know it?
There are 3 aspects to the strategic disinvestment process that are quite important. Number one, we have the core airline and we also have 3 subsidiaries. The engineering company, the regional airline, which is Alliance Air, and then the ground handling company that will be offered for sale independently of Air India, the airline itself. So there are really 4 companies that are being offered up as part of the bidding process. That's point 1. Point 2, the government is committed to strategic disinvestment, which means that we will be offering 51% or more up for sale for the airline as well as the subsidiaries. And then the third very important aspect to remember is that we will be separating the core operational assets for Air India and its subsidiaries from the non-core, non-operational assets. The non-core, non-operational assets as well as the unsustainable debt will be held in an SPV that will remain with the government. We will, on the other hand, be creating the airline and its subsidiaries in a much more efficient, much more cleaned up structure that will then be available for sale.
Now, as As the government looks to allay privacy and security concerns with Aadhaar, the UID AI today said that the program could come equipped with facial recognition by July this year. The UID AI hopes this new feature will help senior citizens who find it difficult with fingerprint authentication. However, face recognition will be used to authenticate Aadhaar only if it is combined with existing authentication methods like iris scans or fingerprints. The new method will also be allowed on a need basis. This is the third layer of security that the UID AI has added to the Aadhaar program after reports of breaches and leaks in the system created a stir. And we'll be talking more about the Face ID aspect which has been added to Aadhaar with the key questions of does this allay security concerns? Will it also help in the other big criticism of the Aadhaar system, which is a high failure rate of authentication, which sometimes leaves the most deprived without access to basic services? Pradesh Prakash and Kiran Jonal Gadda will be joining me on Primetime Debate.
Retail banking will be the priority of IDFC Bank Capital First combined. That's the word coming in from the managing directors of IDFC Bank and Capital First post the approval of the merger on Saturday. Speaking to Bloomberg Quint's Ira Duggal, Capital First's founder V. Vaidyanathan says that retail will become more than 50% of the loan book of the merged entity. CEO and MD of IDFC Bank, Rajiv Lal, says that it is possible to build a more granular business within the retail segment to guard against concentration risk against wholesale loans. Here's a slice of that particular conversation.
The strategic synergies, I think complementarities are very clear. Our stated goal has been aggressive retailization. This merger brings that and more. 3 million customers, brand footprint, retail asset book, with a focus on a particularly interesting customer base, which is harder for banks to access. That's another important feature of the strategic fit. Then from culturally, this is extremely important. I think trust between us, general cultural fit between the two organizations, limited overlap in terms of people. That's the second big leg of it. And then from the third aspect of this is that if you look at it from IDFC bank shareholders' point of view, they will end up owning 72% of the combined entity. We believe that the control premium that this transaction entails is actually quite modest relative to recent transactions.
Mr. Vaidyanathan, now, Dr. Lal has spoken publicly about, the need to expand retail base of the bank. He's spoken about, inorganic being an optional route, perhaps a preferred route. In your case, I know at the back of your mind there may have been that desire to be a bank, but you were growing very well. As an NBFC, you've had a very, very strong, sort of growth path. Why did you feel the need to do this right now? You could have potentially waited until your book was, 50,000 crore or more than that.
In the initial stage, when our book was growing from 20 to maybe 15 or 16,000 crore, there was real funding challenges because it was a small NBFC. In the last 3 years, those funding challenges have vanished because companies become large. Now, from here to about 60, 70,000 crore, of course, we could have pulled staying in NBFC. Life would have been fine. But at some stage, if we got to make an eternal organization, then we have to be a bank, because the liability base has to be diversified and has to be stable. It doesn't mean it's low cost. Of course, it's a big bonus, but it has to be more diversified than being low cost. So that was a key need. Retail is going to be a very big play for us. It's too important. I have no...
So what, 50% of the book?
Probably more.
More.
Because retail is very important, because we believe retail does three significant things. One, it brings diversification, which is key. Number two, it brings relationships, because you can sell a lot more to that base. And thirdly, it's far more stable in asset quality. It's not black swanish.
Now, Indian markets closed at record highs for the third day in a row. Both the Sensex and Nifty clocked gains of nearly 0.7%. Banking and financial stocks led the rally. Neeraj Shah sums up the day's action on Dalal Street in this report.
all about what banks did and thereby what large caps did in the session today. I just look at what the markets have done, about 0.5%, in fact 0.75% for the Sensex, but then you shift focus to what the mid caps and the small caps have done, and that will tell you the true picture of what the markets did. Pretty much nothing. Nifty Bank and Nifty led the rally, but the mid caps and the small caps, precious little. And even the advanced decline on the Nifty, even though the Nifty went up about 0.5%, was close to 3:2 in favor of the declines. However, what led the charge and what helped the market stay afloat? One, the HDFC twins, and predominantly HDFC really, 6.5% higher, but HDFC Bank too about 2% higher, not bad. And ICICI Bank, because of that inclusion in the Morgan Stanley focus list, was up about 3.5% in trade. That aside, I think the post-deal reaction on both Capital First and IDFC Bank wasn't quite spectacular, to be honest. Capital First, pre-open rates were 10%, open rates were 7%, ending the day just about 1% higher. IDFC Bank down about 5% in trade. So market found a different way of reducing that premium on Capital First. They punished IDFC Bank instead of buying Capital First. What else? I think results impact was seen on Muthoot Capital, which went up 20%. Bhansali Engineering Polymers as well, up another 5% after having a 7x rally in the last 12 odd months. The TDI's price hike impact was seen on GNFC, up 11%. Sheela Foam will get impacted negatively. The stock holding out today though. Let's see if they manage to pass on prices or will they have to take a hit. I think management will be best placed to speak about this. Some other gainers were Hathway Cable and the likes of Den Networks as well. The clutch of stocks that came off in the session today, and that's something that you should be wary of. So while we've highlighted all the gainers, keep in mind that the broader market had an equal set of losers too, and that is something that should worry investors. Hopefully, the global markets don't really come off in the session tonight, and we have some support for the session tomorrow, maybe by the global markets and maybe by Nifty Bank.
Well, in other news, India's trade deficit widened to $14.88 billion from $13.83 billion in November. Merchandise exports for December rose 12.36% from a year ago to $27.03 billion. Goods imports came in at $41.91 billion for December. This is a gain of 21.1% from a year ago.
And the wholesale price inflation for the month of December came in at 3.58% against a Bloomberg consensus estimate of 4%. This compares to the 3.93% reported in November. The fall in inflation was led by food inflation that stood at 2.91% versus 4.1%, and primary articles at 3.86% versus 5.28%. Fuel and power prices, however, surged to 9.16% versus 8.82% in November. Core WPI inflation stood at 3.1% versus 3% last month. The WPI data marks a stark divergence to the retail inflation trend. CPI inflation surged to 5.21% in December against the 4.88% level seen in November.
Union Bank has put out advertisements inviting bids for two of its stressed accounts. The public sector lender, which made a provision of more than 3,500 crore rupees in the second quarter, wants to sell its exposure to steel companies. Vishwanath Nair brings you the story.
From what we understand through this notification that the Union Bank has put out on its website, these two accounts that they're looking to sell are SR Steel and Bhushan Steel. Their exposures that they're looking to offload is at closer to about 2,700 crore, about 1,100 crore odd in Bhushan Steel and roughly 1,600 crore in SR Steel. Now this is important because this is where we're seeing a sort of a shuffle in the lenders that have exposures in these two companies right before there is a resolution plan that has to be submitted in both these companies. In SR Steel, if you remember, January 29th is the last date for submission of any resolution plan under the insolvency process. Similarly, in Bhushan Steel, this date has been set on the 18th of January. So right before those plans come in, we are seeing some shuffle, and thereby we will also see that some of the existing lenders who are part of this committee of creditors will probably take on these exposures so they can have a better say as and when these resolution plans come. They can have a better say if these plans should be accepted or not. in this SR Steel case, particularly in December, we have seen Axis Bank and Bank of Baroda both selling their foreign currency exposures. Similarly, Indian Overseas Bank has also sold it in SR Steel. In December, they sold some of their exposure, about 600 odd crore, in Bhushan Steel. So this kind of movement is interesting to see, and this will sort of lead to consolidation amongst the lenders who have exposures in both these companies.
Well, it was business as usual at the Supreme Court today. The 4 senior judges who had criticized the manner in which Chief Justice of India Deepak Mishra was allocating cases attended court today and went about their business in a routine manner. The Chief Justice met with a 7-member delegation of the Bar Council as well, with representatives from the Supreme Court Bar Association yesterday to assure them that the crisis would be resolved at the earliest. Chairman of the Bar Council of India, Manan Kumar Mishra, who headed the 7-member delegation, said that the issues flagged by the 4 dissenting judges were issues of a family and they have been resolved internally.
They have resolved the whatever little issues were there. We were very much hopeful that the honorable judges themselves, they will evolve some in-house mechanism. They have already done it. They sat over at tea and they have settled the issue. Yesterday only the Honorable Chief Justice, Honorable Justice Chalmeswar, Honorable Justice Madal Lokur, Honorable Mr. Justice Kurian Joseph and all other judges. We met about 15 judges yesterday. Morning also we have met Honorable Mr. Justice Ramanna. All were hopeful. They said that Bar Council of India has done a very good job. This mediation was a little bit required and they have resolved the issue.
In other news from the court, the plea seeking investigation into the death of Justice Lodha will come up for hearing tomorrow. This is the same case that Justice Gogoi confirmed as one of the reasons for meeting with the Chief Justice of India earlier. Arpan Chaturvedi sums up the developments in this report.
Well, the PIL in this case, which has been filed, is seeking an independent investigation into the death of Judge Lodha, and the first hearing in this happened on Friday, post which the matter was adjourned to Monday, which is today, but the bench could not assemble and hear this case as one of the judges who was on the bench was unavailable today. And now, of course, after that, we know that this matter has been posted for tomorrow, Tuesday. And then why is this Judge Lodha case significant? If you remember the last Friday, when the 4 judges had done a press conference and had expressed certain reservations in the manner in which the cases were being allotted to the benches. One specific case that they confirmed as far as their reservation was concerned was in relation to this particular case. And if you remember in the press conference, the journalists had asked them, and only one specific case they confirmed, and Justice Gogoi, who was there in the press conference, said that yes, they had met on Friday morning with the Chief Justice, expressing their reservation in as far as the happenings of the last few months is concerned, and Judge Lodha's matter was also put forward to him. Now remember that is why this is such an important case, and now tomorrow we will get to know when the hearing happens in court number 10 by the bench of justice, which is headed by Justice Arun Mishra, as to what is going to happen further in this particular PIL.
Well, Prashant Bhushan, advocate at the Supreme Court, is joining us over the phone line from New Delhi. Thank you, Mr. Bhushan, for speaking with us on Prime Time this evening. The Bar Council of India says all is well, that the story is over. Is it really over? What is the next move in what we saw unfolding last week, and what will be the road to really settling this matter?
You see, this is not an internal power struggle or internal ego dispute between the Chief Justice and the 4 senior judges. The 4 senior judges took a very, very unprecedented step of going public with a very serious issue, and that issue is of what I call bench fixing by the Chief Justice, of assigning important and politically sensitive cases to particular hand-picked benches to achieve a particular result. So unless some fair, rational and transparent rules are laid down for the manner in which cases will be allocated to different benches, until then this issue cannot be resolved. This is not something that you have a cup of tea and say that all right, now things are hunky-dory, etc. This issue will have to be resolved by putting in place some better system rather than individual politically sensitive cases being placed before the Chief Justice and he handpicking benches to send them to. There has to be a more transparent and rational system to deal with this,
Right.
by which this kind of allegation or this kind of feeling or apprehension of bench fixing by the Chief Justice will not arise.
Right, Mr. Bhushan, you know, and we've been on top of the story since Friday on Bloomberg Quinn, and I wanted to get your views on the manner in which this press conference was held, because the lawyers that we seem to be speaking to did suggest that they were not, members of the bar were not very pleased with the manner in which this issue was brought to light. Are you a proponent of the way in which this was done? Perhaps that's been a reason for a lot of criticism for this whole controversy?
You see, a lot of people, especially those who work within the system, whether they are lawyers or judges, who are kind of beneficiaries or who have a conflict of interest in such matters, feel that the problems within the judiciary should not be brought out in the open because that will damage the credibility of the judiciary. I do not at all agree with that kind of view. If there are problems, they need to be, and if they are not being settled internally, of course, first you should try and settle them internally, and these judges tried to do that. They wrote a letter to the Chief Justice 2 months ago. Thereafter, they followed it up with oral discussions with him. But when things were not being resolved, and the last straw came with this Judge Loya's case, which was sent to a junior bench, and particularly a junior bench who is known for his proximity to the BJP leaders. So therefore, once such problems are not being resolved internally by the authorities, in this case the Chief Justice, then I think it's the public duty of the judges to bring them out in the open, so that there is a broader public discussion amongst the larger stakeholders in the functioning of the judicial system, that is the people and the consumers of justice, so that thereafter, in that churning, a process or something would be evolved to resolve this problem.
All right. Thank you so much, Prashant Bhushan, for speaking with us this evening on Primetime.
Moving on, Prime Minister Narendra Modi held delegation-level talks with his Israeli counterpart, Benjamin Netanyahu, today. After the talks, India and Israel inked 9 pacts to boost cooperation in key areas including cybersecurity and energy. The Israeli PM, who arrived in India yesterday, will also visit Ahmedabad and Mumbai during his 6-day stay. Speaking at the India-Israel Business Innovation Forum meeting organized by CII, Secretary of DIPP Ramesh Abhishek said that India assured Israeli firms to resolve their concerns and make things easier for Israeli companies to do business in India. During the event, a startup challenge was announced for budding entrepreneurs in India. Under the challenge, up to 10 Indian startups will receive $5,000 to access Israel's industry resources to grow their business.
We exchange views on scaling up the centers of excellence that have been a mainstay of agriculture cooperation by bringing in advanced Israeli practices and technology. In defense, I have invited Israeli companies to take advantage of the liberalized FDI regime to make more in India. We are venturing into less explored areas of cooperation such as oil and gas, cybersecurity, films, and startups. And third, we are committed to facilitate the flow of people and ideas between our geographies.
Indians and Israelis know too well the pain of terrorist attacks. We remember the horrific savagery in Mumbai. We grit our teeth. We fight back. We never give in. Hope that this new era of India-Israel relations will bring unprecedented benefits to India, to Israel, to all humanity.
And on Primetime Debate this evening, we'll be speaking with retired Colonel K.V. Kuber to talk a bit more about the defense deals between India and Israel. Are the defense pacts what are cementing ties between the two nations? The Ministry of External Affairs has announced changes in the rules for issuing passports. The government will issue orange jacketed passports to all citizens who want to migrate to another country for work and require an immigration check. Immigration check status is only for people who have an education qualification under matriculation or do not have certified vocational skills. The Ministry of External Affairs has a list of countries which are put under the ECR status. It has 18 countries such as Afghanistan, Bahrain, Indonesia, UAE and Saudi Arabia, among others. Hitting out at the government's move, Congress President Rahul Gandhi tweeted today saying, and I quote, "Treating India's migrant workers like second-class citizens is completely unacceptable. This action demonstrates BJP's discriminatory mindset."
In international news, US President Donald Trump has said that he's the least racist person. This comes after Trump's alleged remark on not allowing immigrants from Africa and Haiti in a meeting last week. Trump's remarks created a furor and have been criticized for being racist. Trump denied making the comments attributed to him in a closed-door meeting of lawmakers discussing immigration. Two Republican senators who were present at the Dhaka meeting in which Trump allegedly made the remarks have denied the said remarks and challenged other senators' descriptions of the remarks. So, Tamanna, Primetime Debate is going to be an action-packed day?
Yes, because Face ID, it's so interesting that over the last few days, the kind of changes and layers that are being added to the Aadhaar system, and now there is Face ID. I've gone through the circular and they say that when you got your Aadhaar card, they did take your photograph and they're going to use that to identify you apart from just your iris and your fingerprint. How will that work? We're talking to two top techies, I would call them, also Aadhaar activists.
And privacy experts.
Pranesh Prakash, Kiran Jonal Gutta are going to join us. And then a little bit more about the Bibi Modi meet, because it's a fine balancing act for India and perhaps it is the defense ties which cement that chemistry.
A lot more geopolitics at play out there.
A lot more geopolitics at play. So that's coming up next on Primetime Debate.
All right, that's going to be an interesting show, so stay tuned to Bloomberg Quint.
Yeah, but before that, India celebrated its 70th Army Day in Delhi Cantonment today, where Army Chief General Bipin Rawat extended his best wishes to all Army personnel and paid homage to the brave hearts who laid down their lives for the nation.
हमारे कई सैनिकों ने देश के प्रति अपना कर्तव्य पालन की भावना को जागृत करते हुए अपने जान की बाजी लगाई है। हमें उन पर गर्व है।